I'm McKinney Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Melica Wiley is a licensed marriage and family therapist and relationship coach with 13 years of clinical experience. She founded Uvolve Healing Center, a private mental health practice that services clients across Texas, Kansas, and Virginia. Melica has witnessed the incredible power of effective communication and healthy relationship dynamics. Combining the insights with her passion for empowering women, she's created a signature coaching program, the Relationship Compass. Melica believes that we deserve a love life that fuels our success and not drains it. So please welcome to the show, Melica Wiley.
Hello.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast and share your story, your expertise with us. I am obsessed with personal development, hence me being a coach. But since I started my own healing journey, my obsession with following therapists, learning from therapists, talking to therapists, is like it fuels me. It fills my soul. So I am grateful anytime you guys, lend your energy. So thank you.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you.
So I love to start the show with going back to, I'm going to say, the beginning, before we get to where you are presently and how you came to all the knowledge that you have and your experiences, because I feel like as kids, we have these vivid imaginations of who or what we want to be when we get older, and how that connects or doesn't connect to who we are today. So I would love to know, who or what did little Melica want to be when she was a little girl?
What's interesting. So I'll give you the raw, real answer. Little Melica wanted to be a secret agent. I would be in the CIA, the FBI, but like something where I would like travel abroad, infiltrate like some bad people, quote unquote, learn about them and then save the world that way by like stopping crime and violence. So that is literally what I wanted. I was told, no, you can't have that. So then I was like, okay, I guess I'll be an obstetrician gynecologist then, right? Like helping women deliver babies and bringing life into the world. So the secret agent is like what I really wanted to do.
I love that. And even how you mentioned, like, you were told, no, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So part of the reason I asked that is because a lot of the clients that come to me now at this age, in their 40s and 50s, that are unhappy with where they are in their life, it's because they wanted different for their life, but because of society or their family telling them to be realistic or having certain expectations of them of what they should do or who they should be. And now them coming to the point of like, yeah, this doesn't align with me. Like, so seeing how you had that experience of someone telling you, no, you can't be a secret agent. I guess, was that from family? Was that from culture?
I think honestly, a little of both. I feel like family, I grew up in a military household. So both my parents were in the military. So like the fact of like being a secret agent or like joining some government agency wasn't foreign to them. But I feel like it more so came from their sense of like, you can do more.
Mm-hmm.
Mix in with, we don't really see Black women being secret agents, girl. How are you going to go to blankety blank country and like blend in? Like what? I think it was like a mix of both of those.
I love that. I think about a lot of the guests that have come on the show and their experiences with lack of representation, whether
Yeah.
it be in an industry that they wanted to go in or where they presently are, and how they
Right.
choose to move through that. I feel like obviously, there are many cultures that may have the same experience where they're the first, only, or different in any environment. And I know in my experience, I am usually the first, only, or different. So in terms of like being the only Black woman in the space, the only Black person in the space, like the only Black speaker on an event, like all of that. So that comes with a lot of heaviness. So I guess my question is like, how did you decide to now become a licensed marriage and family therapist and relationship coach instead of, the obstetrician, gynecologist, or the secret agent?
Yeah. So the secret agent, I let that one, I would say I put it on the bookshelf and just like stored it away. When I went to college, I went to the University of Kansas. I went and I was pre-med psychology. And so I just followed the path that honestly my parents, more so like my mom had set out for me, like, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be successful. This is what you're going to do. And I was like, yes, ma'am, here I go. I preface that too. A part of my story is I had my first child at 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said too, I felt like I had this pressure on me as well of not only am I going to be successful, but I will not be a statistic. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into college, I was very obedient in the sense of like, I already messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And quote unquote, now I need to make sure I prove myself to my parents, my community, my family that I am going to be successful. And then I took organic chemistry, and that class was no joke. And my mentor at the time was like, Melica, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I don't know. So I took an assessment, took a couple assessments, and to fast forward the story, I was like, I really like psychology. Hence, I was pre-med psychology. And so I was like, I want to do something in this field. I don't know what yet, but I feel like I'm going to begin to trust myself and just explore. And then as time went on, semesters went on, I honestly didn't know I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist until my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking communication classes, applied behavioral science classes, took bowling twice. But in that, once I started taking more of the advanced psychology classes, I was like, ooh, being in secret agent, I'm really good at asking questions. I'm really good at holding space. I'm really good at making these connections, seeing patterns, understanding what people are saying, but what they're meaning. And then I feel like it was like this beautiful merge of, I guess I'll be a secret keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
A secret
Keeper of secrets. Yeah.
Really, we're not going to trademark that, but and it like manifested really beautifully in that sense of really aligning to where I'm at now. And then I went on to get my master's, etc. But it was a journey.
Absolutely. And there's so much that you said there that I want to unpack. One, so I had my first child at 17. And like you, I had the same mentality where I'm not going to be a statistic. I had something to prove that, okay, yes, I did what society considered, quote unquote, a mess up, but I am going to prove that I am not that. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you if you feel like that has, I guess, connected to making you strive, I guess, for excellence to do what you do now, proving people wrong.
Yeah. I struggled with that one. I still struggle with it because I feel like mine was an imbalance of perfectionism and that coming out. And then that gave me unrealistic ideas that I put on myself, mixed in with people pleasing tendencies. And so I was a really big people pleaser. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. This is what you want me to do. If my mind gave you authority, then you had authority over my life. And that became dangerous, not in a sense of like, but it became dangerous for my mental health because relationally, I stayed in relationships I didn't need to because I didn't want to mess up. I needed to make this work. I stayed in jobs that weren't fulfilling because they're paying well enough. So who am I to question? And so, it was like this balancing that I still balance. I'm a lot more aware of it now and can like course correct, but it translated into that. But also I'm highly successful. I am together. I'm on top of things. If you need, it's funny because like when I had my group practice, they were like policies and procedures. Like I'm on that. I will cross some T's and dot some I's. That is the military army brat in me. Also, I am a high achiever who taps into burnout a little too much.
Wow. I feel like doing this podcast for 5.5 years, having conversations every week, listening to other people's stories and the things that they've overcome, I always look for patterns and similarities.
Yeah.
And like one of the main patterns I discovered having all these conversations is that, our pain births our purpose, right? The things that we don't want to ever experience again, we want to heal and help heal other people in those areas. But also like seeing the similarity with both of us being teen moms striving for perfection. I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser. Definitely have a history of past toxic relationships because doing what they wanted and now being on this journey of healing and setting healthy boundaries and understanding behaviors and all this stuff. So, I've seen this pattern with other guests that have, had kids early. So obviously there's the advantages and different disadvantages that came with that. But I find it interesting. It's like, what do you call it? Quantitative research or whatever. Like, like seeing the pattern of, the 200 and almost 300, conversations that I've had.
Right. You have a lot of data. I love it.
Yeah. Might sell that. So I would love to talk about, I guess for you, the switch now, because once we have, I feel like there's this aha moment or this point that we come to where we've had enough unhealthy relationships and we're like, okay, it's time for me to heal. I'm the common denominator here. How can I move forward and not make the same mistakes, have better connections, all that good stuff? Like, what was the aha moment for you where things changed?
The first one, I feel like my first aha moment was my divorce. And so when him and I divorced, I remember thinking, am I staying in this marriage because of fear? The fear of judgment, the fear of failing, the fear of going life alone, the fear of being a single mom again, because at this time, him and I had a daughter. But it was in that moment where I remember talking to my girlfriends and I did the common pros and cons list, right? But I really sat with that and was like, I'm choosing to believe that if I divorce, I am a failure. And I'm like, Worst case scenario, my clients are like, how is she going to help me with my marriage if she's been divorced? Positive case scenario or best case scenario would be no one really cares and you just keep thinking about your life, but you, Melica, you are happy. You feel whole. You feel fulfilled. Right. And so I feel like it was that moment, or I would say those months, where it was pivotal. And then I began to look at divorce as not like I failed, but as our relationship ran its course, and it was like this monumental moment of we are going to do each other a disservice and cause more harm if we stay because we got married for the wrong reasons. And in our own healing and discovery, it's like we can be some kick-ass co-parents, which we are. But it was that release of where I'm like, oh, I need to listen to my voice a little more, understand my emotions, checking my own emotions to see if they are accurate and deciding how I want to live. And really tapping into like, what are my values, Melica's values, not what society says, not what my mom and dad says, not what the family says, but like spending some time getting to know me. Which, whew, that was, I avoided that one. I avoided that, but it was now looking back on it, I'm like, man, I love it. I love it. Those times were definitely very informative and transformative.
I can completely resonate with everything that you said. I feel like, so oftentimes when people talk about divorce or think about divorce, they think about, two people that just can't get along, they're fighting, they hate each other, whatever. But I know people, and I have had a situation where there's a breakup, but it's not because, you don't love each other, you don't care about each other. It's realizing that you're not prioritizing yourself, realizing that what you want for your life may be different, realizing like, yeah, you're a great person, you're just not great for me. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different dynamics. I'm sure you see them. What are some, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was agreeing.
Yeah, I was going to say like, what are like, based on your experience as a therapist and a coach, like what are some common challenges, relationship challenges that you often see or hear?
The common one, so that I see with couples that come in is they say things like we aren't communicating. I feel like that's a surface level answer. And so definitely my curiosity kicks in of like, what does that mean for them? Underneath of it, I like to say there are common themes such as fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, isolation, not getting our needs met, repeated patterns of like cheating or lying or trust or betrayal. And so these bigger issues are the ones that are coming in. Now my own ADHD mind being like, wait, what was the one?
It's okay. I got it too. My daughter, she was diagnosed with it when she was in like 7th grade. So she calls it Adahuda, but yeah.
Yes.
So the question was like, what are some common relationship challenges that you often see or hear, which you did answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of communication, I wonder if you could share, I guess, some healthier ways that partners can communicate for a deeper connection.
Okay. My first of all, every couple is different and their dynamic is different. And I get this. And so I like to sometimes preface it as if I say this one, there's multiple ways.
Yeah.
I like to lead though with accountability. I feel like the best way to communicate is having our own sense of accountability when we're communicating. Oftentimes, as a therapist, I work with a couple in my coaching program. I just work specifically with the women, with high achieving women. And I would say The accountability looks like, how am I presenting my grievance of what is going on to my partner? Is my tone, am I coming in hot? Which I like to say, where I'm just like, well, it's funny how, or the last time I told you, or you never do this, or I guess I'll do this. And so looking at, yes, our tone, but I like to tell people, look at your communication style when you don't get your way, when you're frustrated, when you are tired. How are you communicating then? And being able to take accountability for that. And I'm not saying, oh, you're the problem. I'm saying it's harder to change a dynamic or a pattern if the individual that truly wants to change it, let's just say in this example, it's the woman, if she is unwilling to look at how is she contributing to this cycle of miscommunication. I feel like once she, in my example, taps into that, that becomes her superpower, where as a clinician or as a relationship coach, I can specifically see, if you actually say less and do this and just add in this part, I wonder if your partner will hear you. And more times than not, they're like, Melica, this worked. I said less words. Or starting with validating, of saying like, that makes sense to me, babe, why you're frustrated that I said I was going to be here at blank time and I wasn't. That makes sense. Taking accountability then looks like, I really want to work on getting here on time or being honest with my words, because I know that you were looking for me to be here, versus, well, you know, I'm going to be late anyways. Why was you worried about it? Which is invalid. Right. And so that's just one example of like the power of accountability. But I feel like sometimes it gets lost, accountability, because let's just say I struggled with accountability because in my mind, I was like, yeah, I can be accountable, but they hurt me. They did this, they did that. And so diffusing ourselves from the problem or what we think is the problem can be so beneficial and helps us get clear.
I love that. I love that advice. I feel like in the last, I don't know, I would say the last few years, I've had to learn to be a better communicator with my loved ones. Like I felt like I was great at communicating for work purposes. I was great at communicating my thoughts and feelings on social, but I had to learn how I say things to my children and my partner to be a better communicator. There's a couple of, I guess, TikToks. I'm trying to utilize TikTok, but anyway, a couple of TikToks that I had posted because I feel like I'm obsessed with how the brain works, how people function. I probably should have become a therapist or something like that, but I read like 25 books a year now, and there is like there's a couple of listening, I guess, communicating tools that I had posted about. One was like it's called like looping. So basically like ask questions, summarize what you heard, and then ask if you got it right. And there was one from Will Smith years ago where he said listening with love, LUV. So actually listen to what the other person is saying. You know, sometimes we're listening to respond or whatever, but like actually pay attention and hear like what that person is saying and try to hear it even from their perspective. U is for understand. So trying to be more understanding of where they're coming from, and V to validate. I found those two things have helped a lot in my communication with my loved ones.
Yes. I would add on that. So I tell my clients to be their best lover, which is LUVER. And I do workshops on this. And so it is listening. The U is for understanding. The V is for validation. E is for empathize. And then the R is for either you need to repeat the process or you need to make repair. And And so then I walk the couples through, what does that actually look like? How do they apply it to their real life situation? Coming to find out that L is one of the hardest ones, right? Like, do we truly listen? And how do we communicate that we're listening to our partner? And our tone, our body language, it does matter. And so I haven't seen that one, so I'm gonna have to look. Yes.
I love the lover part. Like I'm all about empathy. Like I'm literally sitting here right now. I have 2 books that I just actually bought. They're about thriving as an empath and the genius of empathy. Like yeah. So you said my keywords.
Yes. So be your hustle player.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so when we first connected, it was through Threads, and I was talking about wanting to have more conversations on the podcast about healing and people's healing journey. And you were open to, sharing about your journey of navigating your first healthy relationship after past relational trauma. I feel like that's not talked about enough because there's challenges that come with that. I had a previous guest on, Natasha Hellwig, and we were talking about, because we have a history of being in narcissistic abusive relationships, and now presently being in a healthy relationship, not being triggered or not looking for, the shoe to drop, or, bringing that baggage from the past. So I would love to hear more about your experience personally, and I guess your expertise in terms of handling that.
Yeah. My personal experience, dating was interesting. It was fun. I learned about myself. But I feel like when I met my current partner now, he was the type of man that I said that I wanted. One that was emotionally intelligent, could hold space. He is just, I smile now because I'm like, he is a freak gym, and I love it. Right. And so I remember vividly, like, sitting on the floor of his apartment, like, we're like talking, playing games. I think it was like Trouble or something, right? No, we were playing the game of life. And he asked these like thought-provoking questions. And I don't remember exactly what the question was, but I froze because internally my body got so warm and I got so scared. And I'm like, what is going on? So I excuse myself. I'm like, oh, I have to go to the restroom. I go in the restroom and I start breaking down crying in this man's restroom, right? We're just like dating now. And I look at myself in the mirror, and when I tell this story, it's like, imagine 2 things. So there's the Melica that is looking in the mirror, and I'm like, tears are coming down my eyes. And then there's a Melica that's in the mirror, my reflection. And she is saying, you don't deserve this man. He's better. You really haven't worked that hard. You're going to fuck this up. And like all of these negative self-doubt things. And I remember, like, of course, I can be a little dramatic at times. Like, I sit on the floor. He's like, you okay in there? Because I've been in, I don't know how long I've been in, but I'm like, now I'm freaking out. Like, oh my God, he's going to think I'm crazy, et cetera, et cetera. But it was in that moment where I'm like, I have 2 paths I can take. I can either take the path where I run the script, where I tell myself I don't need to be in a relationship. I lean into hyper independence. I got this. It's easier. Do I want to be in a relationship anyways? I love what I'm just doing. Right? Or I could take the path of, okay, some wounds are coming up that you're not aware of. Our partners are a mirror of things that we need to work on. So he, in essence, doesn't even realize it, but this is an opportunity for you, Melica, to step up, to do the work. You have a great support system. You are an amazing woman. You are a great explorer and can figure out what you need to do. I stood up, wiped my tears, of course, like flushed the toilet, and it was that moment where I was like, I choose the second path. And I continue to choose the second path. And when these hard moments came up, my body will tell me, right, what is going on if I listen, if I slow down and listen. And so I actively choose to take the path that is going to lead me to my internal happiness, which does not mean I'm not going to have trials and tribulations or struggles and difficult conversations. But I know I'm not willing to self-sabotage anymore. So,
I love that for you.
yes. I don't remember afterwards. Afterwards is a blur. I think I said like, "Oh, my stomach was hurting." Of course, I like lied my way out of it, and for a moment, and then like, eventually, the next day, definitely told him like, what was going on and how I was scared. And my honor wanted to be activated, and yeah, providing that empathy he shared as well. And so we made a pact that we will continue to heal our own internal things that come up, reprogramming our internal operating system. And so that's what I do with me and the women that I get to work with in my coaching program.
I love it. I love hearing stories of men that are emotionally available, that are holding space, and that are also willing to do the work. Like that excites me. Like I love that for you. The previous guest, Natasha, that I was talking about, we were both speaking of how our present relationships, it's like a first for us because, you know, having past relationships where you didn't have that. And then you're kind of like, oh, well, what is this? And then, you know, you're trying to reprogram your mind and not have the negative self-talk from the past relationships.
Yeah, because it's easier. Well, I don't want to say it's easier. I just knew what to expect with unhealthy relationships. I knew what I needed to do. I knew how to navigate it. I knew I could do certain behaviors. In my first healthy adult relationship, it was scary because of the unknown. I don't know if I really do share how I'm feeling. How is he going to handle this? He was unpredictable to me because he was so stable, which makes, when I say it out loud, wow. But it makes sense when you have past relationships that you got comfortable with the chaoticness. And so when something is calm, you're like you said earlier, when is the other foot going to drop? When's the other shoe going to drop? When's this blow up in my face? And so, yes. Yeah. I'm like saying yes because I was like, one thing that I work with in my program is like your secure relationship roadmap. And so it is unique to all of us. And so it's personalized, but there are some like steps that you take to make sure that you have a secure relationship with self so that you also can have healthy conversations, healthy behaviors, so that you also can have a secure relationship with your partner that isn't contingent upon what they do, but more so contingent upon how you choose to show up.
Yes. I love that. Like as you were talking, it was like I was like slightly holding my breath because I can relate to all of it. And so it's been just over a year or so, but has it? Now I'm losing track of time. But anyways, I see my therapist every week. And she said to me this week, she's like, you know, most of my clients that I see regularly, I see every 2 weeks. She's like, right now, you're the only one that I see every week. But I'm like, I need it. I want it. I'm craving it. But to what you said, like with my partner now, I feel emotionally safe. I feel like my needs are met emotionally, but because of my history of toxic relationships, not speaking up for myself, not honoring my boundaries, it's right now I am able to have uncomfortable conversations and state my boundaries regardless of what they are going to do with that information. And like I said to you before we started recording, like we have 5 kids between the two of us. But technically we each have 3 dependents and then 2 dogs that we share. Okay. It's a lot. But because him and I are both empaths and we're both like nurturers and caregivers, it's easy for us to try to like out nurture each other and get exhausted, with all we do for everybody else. And I'm in a space where I'm learning to set healthy boundaries and be okay if other people are not okay with them, basically. So I made a suggestion this week, which was a very uncomfortable conversation. And I was telling my therapist, and she was like, I am so proud of you. Like, regardless of what he decides to do with that information, you have stated, this is my boundary. This is my rules of engagement. I love you, but I am willing to walk away from a perfectly great man because this is my boundary. Like,
Yeah,
it's hard.
it is. It is. It's that, like that balancing between, I would say, the 2 paths. And we don't know what moment it is going to be, but when that moment comes up, we know we have a decision to make of, am I going to go down old programming or am I going to continue down the path of new programming? So if we just, in my mind, I put it those 2 ways. It helps me decide like, okay, I need to go down the new programming. I want to go down the new programming, which means I get to do things like you just said, and I get to risk. And in the risk, I don't lose myself.
Yeah.
And I get to trust that we have built this relationship where he can hear me, he can take his time to digest it, and then he will come back to me with an answer or whatnot. And it will be, either way, I will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some healthy boundaries that we can set in a relationship?
That's a good question. I would say like what's coming to my mind would be knowing the difference between a boundary and a barrier, I think would be beneficial, right? And so a barrier is going to be something that like ends the connection. Like there's no, like the drawing a line. Man, my examples are not exampling. What's it called? Drawing like in the,
drawing a line in the sand?
That part, right? It's like drawing a line in the sand, where it's going to be like, you will not, or you will not. That is not a boundary. A boundary more so can be something like, hey, when I'm speaking, I really want to have a space where I'm heard. And so that means I am going to slow myself down. And when I'm doing that, I would love for you to be able to hear me. The boundary in essence is, if I'm saying it, I am going to slow myself down. I actually have, and I'm like, I don't know why my mind is blanking on boundaries. I can't think of any more off the top of my head.
So for myself, I remember when I started to understand setting healthy boundaries, because of past toxic relationships and me prioritizing that person and it being all about making them happy and doing what they wanted. Basically, my bar was very low in terms of my healthy boundaries. And when I went through my divorce, because I was angry, resentful, bitter, all those things in that moment, I felt like I created a barrier because the bar became too high that nobody could get in. So I had to learn to find a middle ground where it's like, it's not too low where I'm letting in riffraff, but it's not too high where I'm blocking my blessing.
Yes. I love the way that you phrase that. So I'm like, we can do some editing of my mind class. But yes, I love that, because it's like, how can I feel safe to express my needs? Because expressing your needs and knowing that you can express your needs, right? I like to tell my clients, we have to grow our window of tolerance. So like what we can tolerate. And I love how you said it, where I don't block myself too much, but at the same time, I don't discount myself. But I literally did freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about, I guess, now that I'm learning to honor me and how I want to feel. I communicate how I want to feel, but like you said, it's not like, snap my fingers saying you have to such and such and such. It's like, for me, my home is a place of peace. I want to feel safe in my own home. I want to feel peaceful in my own home because of past experiences. So it's important to me how I feel in my home. If there is chaos or conflict that doesn't align with how I want to feel in my home. So whether it be our extended family, if they're trying to bring drama or sorry, that is not welcome in this space. That is not how I want to feel. That's my boundary. Like, like one example, I should say.
Yeah. My mind and boundaries are like, I don't know. My mind is like, we're not here to talk about I don't know what it's doing, but I'm like,
I get it. Listen, it might be our ADHD, because sometimes I'm even like listening to a guest and I'm listening so that I can hear what the guest is saying. And I know that I have to ask a question after, and then I start talking after, and I'm like, what was I saying? I don't remember.
Yeah. I have to loop back around to that question.
It's all good. I would love if you could give some advice to a woman that is listening that maybe she has recently exited an unhealthy relationship and is just starting her healing journey. Like, what advice would you give to her?
I would say try it all, and what doesn't work. And what I mean by work is what doesn't feel good to you, what doesn't align. Try something different. I like to say that and think about activating the mind and body. And so sometimes we think, I'm going to be on this healing journey, so I'm going to read a lot of self-help books. I'm going to look at a lot of videos. I'm going to go down, watch TikToks, or I'm going to consume. And I love that. I love the consumption. But then I also would invite you to activate it in your body. Can you move your body? Can you listen to a podcast such as this while you're walking? Can you do some stretching? Can you, for me, I loved going to kickboxing. Some women do yoga. Some, I'm like, get into arts and crafts or pottery. If someone's like, I don't have a hobby, I'm like, okay, go on a walk. What brings you joy? Like it's in you already. It's just, in essence, how can you unpack and move through the trauma that you've been through to get to, maybe I like how you said that inner child, right? To get to that inner child and see what they are needing. Going to the park, swinging on some swings. And when I say this, sometimes people are like, okay, Melica, but I want some like tangible things. And I'm like, that's one of them, because I do believe, and I tell my clients, you guys are the experts of you. The information is within you. I might say something and it sparks an idea or a light bulb moment, but that's because it was already there. And so my advice would be, don't be afraid to be silly and to play and to have fun and to cry and to grieve, all of it, right? If we think about it, if this is a healing journey, it's going to encompass all of that.
Yeah. I love that advice. And it makes me think of something you said earlier about even your own experience in terms of like when you went to school and you were trying different things before you decided on what it is that you want to do. I think sometimes we think that if we read something or we see that something has worked for someone else, that we have to do that specific thing. Sort of, loop back to what you just said. It's like the exploration of it to discover what's bringing us joy, to discover what feels good. And everyone is so different. Like I have friends that are so like extroverted and so like the things that they enjoy, I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
I realized I think the pandemic allowed me to slow down and realize what I actually enjoy and what helps me to thrive. But it's like, I used to go to parties with my friends or I used to do certain things and realized I am beyond overstimulated in those environments. I am actually not having fun right now. Like, all of those things. So the advice that you gave about just exploring things, like the simplest thing, I once thought that I would never enjoy nature walks out into trails. I think a part of my mind was like, oh, that's for white people. And now, like the last 3 years or so, every day I am out doing nature walks in conservation areas and, grounding and doing all those things. But it's been a part of my healing journey. And I had to explore to find that that's what works for me.
Yes. I love that you said that. And this is where I'm thinking of one of my clients. She was like, Malika, my mind just won't like, I don't like that seems too big. Try everything. And so we sat in the office and we wrote down, we came up with like 30 just random different things. And I was like, let's just use this as the starting point. Scratch it off if you don't like it. If you like it, let's just circle it and then go from there. One of them, she thought she was going to love going to the gym, etc. And she was like, I didn't like getting dressed and actually going there. That actually, like, with all her other responsibilities, I'm like, girl, I feel you because I'm not trying to go to nobody's gym. That's my DNA to do. However, she realized going on walks, and she was like, I would hear people say going on walks, and she's like, I would roll my eyes. I'm like, where are you walking? Why? What is that doing? She's like, but that is something that she could do.
Mm-hmm.
Is walking to her kiddo's school to pick them up, changing her schedule, tapping into slowing down. I think when you said that, learning when she was overstimulated, going back to boundaries a little, seeing how she maybe wasn't having some boundaries with herself because she would say yes to everything. So learning to say no or not right now or at this time. That can also be a part of your healing journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we go to the final segment of the show, I want you to tell people where they could stay connected with you and learn more from you and about you.
Yes, you can stay connected with me on Instagram. It's at Melica Wiley. And of course my website, and I have a exclusive private community just for high achieving women. It is based on Facebook, and that's where I go live weekly. I answer questions. It's a great space for women in committed relationships who want to improve their communication, take more of a deeper dive into their own relationship and how they want to be, like I say, the agents of change. And so I like to say, I help you solve the right problems and rewire the programming, because sometimes I feel like we get stuck in the wrong problem trap.
Yeah.
And that's why we feel burnt out or emotionally distant, or that we keep repeating ourselves. So
yeah. Perfect. So I will have all the links to connect with you in the detailed section below the episode, so they don't have to search too far. They can just click and connect with you directly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the final segment of the show is kind of like a rapid fire. Just ask a couple of quick reflection questions and you say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. Ooh, this is fun.
Okay. Name a book that has changed or greatly impacted your life.
I would say How to Be a Badass at Making Money.
Okay. What would you say is your superpower?
My superpower is holding space, a safe space.
I love that. Okay. What's the first thing you do in the morning and the last thing you do at night?
The first thing I do in the morning is practice gratitude. And I have a soft startup, right? I wake up slowly. The last thing I do at night is I plan out my day for the next day. I plan out my next day.
Love it. Okay. What new belief, behavior, or habit has improved your life in the last 5 years?
The new habit is I box things together. And so if I'm cooking, I will listen to a podcast or music. If I'm driving, I will have my conversations in the car. So I put a habit stack so that I can get things done. So at the end of the night, I just can do whatever Melica wants to do.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
Speak kindly to themselves.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Melica, for sharing your journey, your expertise, your energy. I always, like I said, appreciate, especially when therapists come through and we're able to co-create this experience for our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Awesome. Awesome. And to all of you healers out there, until next time, don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. And I just want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% of most popular podcasts. I am going to challenge you to share this episode with 3 girlfriends that you think would receive value from hearing Melica's gems, and feel free to screenshot this week's episode. You can tag us on Instagram and share your aha moments. You can tag Melica at Melica Wiley. That's MELICAWILEY. And you can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.